Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. Today we are going to take a look at the second one of my three-player games. And while I had a very good start into this group, and I'm at 14 points, Malakesh was able to win the last two three-player games, and with that is actually at 13 points as well. Of course, he has one more game already finished than I have, so I still have the better position in the standings, but he is making it very clear that I am not allowed to let my guard down and that I still have to score as many points as possible. And the three-player game that we are taking a look at today is the one where Malakesh is not involved. So I have now the chance to again keep him on distance and go into the three-player games that I play against him with a good, again with a lead and a good position. And now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game I'm playing in the second position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And there is a bit of theater synergy in H3 with Chaplin, Marlene Dietrich, and Hollywood. Only Fleming is missing. We have Bill Gates and Einstein as lab and science leaders. There's no space flight and no Manhattan Project, however. We also have Marie Curie as a lab leader. There's Pierre, there's Mandela, but there's no Gandhi, no Churchill. Also no Manhattan Project for the military. We have the internet together with Pierre, which is a strong combination. The Red Cross is there. We have a bunch of very strong H2 wonders. Ocean Liner Service, Railroad, Harvard College, Suez Canal, Statue. So probably the 5 best H2 wonders are in the game. Maria Theresa is there together with the Ocean Liner Service. If you want to go into a theater strategy already earlier, you can maybe do it with Bach or Shakespeare. We have Newton as a strong economical science leader. We have James Cook together with the Suez Canal, and two military action leaders with Napoleon and Robespierre. In H1 we have Joan of Arc as a military action leader, Nostradamus to help with the strength, Gutenberg but no Leonardo, Michelangelo with a lot of strong H2 wonders, has some potential, also some interesting ones in H1 of course. Columbus works very well going into a colonization game, Isabella might as well, and then there's Saladin as a very solid leader. All of the wonders that give additional happy faces or help with that area are in the game. There's Universitas but no Silk Road. Kharny's in first position, he just picks the library, which I think should be the best pick here. And then at my turn, there is Hammurabi to take, but I have to think about if I really want to take him, because Brightfuture has the potential to then, or the option to then go for Sun Tzu and Colossus and maybe push the game into a military-heavy direction. At least going for that combination would mean that he passes in the Engineering Genius. I think just taking Sun Tzu Engineering Genius and then waiting for Wonder to come down the row would also be quite strong. And so I just thought about maybe I could just take Sun Tzu for myself. At least I would then also get an urban growth in addition to that. The thing is, the Colossus might still be taken by Brightfuture. Maybe not, because again he would be passing on the Engineering Genius, but he might just go for Colossus plus either Alex or plus the other urban growth. And then I would play Sun Tzu against the Colossus, which makes it quite difficult to set up a colonization game and to win strength events, so that would feel a bit annoying. And at the end I decided to just go for Hammurabi, despite the potential danger, because Hammurabi is just very strong. If Brightfuture goes for the Colossus, that at least would mean that I am able to go for the Roman roads, which I think works. Hammurabi and Rome roads I think work quite well together, and I was hoping that despite Brightfuture potentially going for Sun Tzu Colossus, I hopefully will be able to defend myself, and at least I am in the seat before him, which makes that a bit easier. So I just go for Hammurabi here, and now I was interested to see whether Brightfuture will indeed go for Sun Tzu and Colossus. And he will go for the Colossus, but actually not with Sun Tzu and rather with Alex. An interesting decision. I think I would maybe rather go for Sun Tzu if I want to go for the Colossus here, but maybe he likes Alex, and there are some interesting early replacement leaders with Saladin and Nostradamus. And maybe also Isabella, who then maybe can work nicely in a colonization game. That means that Kharny will actually now go for Sun Tzu. He could have also just gone for Homer. He is now playing Sun Tzu against the Colossus, but he's willing to do it. And then he's actually taking the Engineering Genius and building a step of the library. I think I wouldn't do that. I think I would just build the third mine instead of the first step, despite not having a free population and despite not being able to finish the library at the next turn. But we will at the next turn see that he actually has a plan with all of this. It's my turn. I think my turn is relatively straightforward. I can elect Hammurabi, go for the Rome roads, do normal stuff, and then I have one civil action left with Hammurabi. With this game having the potential to turn a bit military heavy, I could actually think about the patriotism here, but at the end I just rather went with the frugality, which additional food and population might also be very helpful in a potential military heavy game, and it's just a more solid card, so I went with the frugality here. I draw one card, and I draw a tactic. That's nice to have. There's also a great wall in the game, so I was quite happy about that draw. Brightfuture elects Alex, builds a mine, increases his population, takes the rich land, has already built his mine, but at some point he might go for farms or farm or mine upgrades. He also lets all of the H1 cards stay on 2 civil actions for Kharny, but Kharny actually has an interesting idea here. He finishes the library, and then he goes for the Hanging Gardens. So he actually goes for double HA Wonder, which is always a stylish move to pull off, but in my opinion it's rarely a good move. There are situations where it might be a good move, but I'm skeptical about it because he already delayed his economy a bit. The library at least is giving him science income, but he, especially not building this mine now for 2 turns, I think is quite a heavy price to pay. The Hanging Gardens is at least a wonder that is maybe good to rather finish late in H1. In that sense, I think the Hanging Gardens is actually a good wonder to go as a second HA wonder, if you want to do it. But nonetheless, having delayed this economy might mean that, yeah, Kharny might have a difficult time doing more than just building third mine, second lab, and at some point finishing that wonder. I think it will be difficult for him to do a lot more than that, and then it's the question if that is really good enough. He could have taken an early copy of Code of Laws or something. So it's a stylish and interesting move, and of course now it's interesting to see how it will play out, but I think I'm not sure if it is the correct one, but as said, the Hanging Gardens is at least a wonder that's fine to finish it late, and together with Sun Tzu and the potential to maybe have then more population, go for more armies, there is some synergy, but then again, as said, I think he will have a hard time building now economy, the wonder, and a lot of military, so that might be difficult for him. At my turn, I was extremely happy to see an early monarchy here. I think that's always the dream. If you go for Hammurabi and then get an early monarchy, I can now build a second lab, I can take the monarchy, I can increase my population, not using the frugality, so that potentially, if for example 2 resources are revealed, then I can now still do the revolution, and building the first step of the Roman roads would actually get me out of corruption, while if I would use the frugality, it wouldn't get me out of corruption. The question is now what to take with my last civil action. I was considering Gutenberg here. I can just keep Hammurabi for a while, and as soon as Gutenberg might be viable, I might switch to him. Maybe if the alchemies are late, I can even use him as a transitional leader. And also Brightfuture as Alex. There is a chance that he might use Alex and go for Gutenberg, build a second lab, and then maybe hope that at some point he gets the alchemy in not that far away in the future. So I thought about Gutenberg. I think it might also work out well, but then again, I thought Kanye Sun Tzu long term, the Hanging Gardens at least might mean that he has some military potential. Brightfuture as the Colossus. There is a military potential, and I'd rather wanted to leave myself the option open of maybe having the ability to go for Nostradamus or maybe Joan of Arc to potentially have a bit of help for the military. And so at the end I decided against Gutenberg, and instead I went with the Code of Laws, a card that I maybe won't go into that quickly, but at some point it will be nice to not be stuck at 5 civil actions and go up to 6. Irrigation could also be a fine pick. There is the ocean liner service, just having it in hand might be fine, but at the end I rather wanted to have the Code of Laws. I draw a card, the Enslave. Brightfuture indeed uses Alex, but he is not going for Gutenberg. Instead, he takes the Engineering Genius, builds the first step of the Colossus, and takes the Breakthrough. Maybe he wants to finish that Colossus very quickly, and maybe is also eyeing the Universitas that is coming down the road. Kharny seeds and opens the development of science. He takes the rich land, the urban growth, increases his population, builds the third mine, so gets some economy going, takes some decent yellow cards. Now it's my turn. I think it's completely clear that I have to do the revolution here. If something like development of crafts would have been revealed, maybe I could have considered just finishing the Rome roads, but even then I might have just done the revolution and built the first step. And so I do the revolution. The question is now what to do with the one civil action that I can still use during my turn. I could just take a card, but all of those cards are rather a bit mediocre, I would say. And also I was eyeing that Great Wall that is coming down the row. I have a Legion tactic in hand. I will have a bit of additional resource income thanks to the Rome roads, and I think the Great Wall is just a wonder with a lot of potential and might also help me against potential military pushes. So I thought it might be quite strong to go for that, and then I thought it's good to just build the first step so that I'm able to finish the Rome roads, take the Great Wall, and I even have a civil action left over then to still take some stuff in case something important is in the row. I draw Scientific Breakthrough, New Deposits, so some interesting events. Brightfuture finishes the Colossus, builds the second lab. Now that he just went for the second lab anyway, maybe it could have been the right choice in hindsight, at least to build it already the turn before instead of building the first step, but maybe he wanted to leave himself a bit more flexible, and he is indeed going for the Universitas here. Kharny Seeds and Brightfuture does actually get punished now for having now committed to the second lab. He is the only player without a free population. Kharny can take the free religion, but with the Hanging Gardens maybe he doesn't need it as much, so I was generally quite happy to see that development revealed, as I might be the one who profits most from it. Kharny, interestingly, goes for Columbus and cartography, so he is maybe setting up for the Suez Canal, was maybe did maybe dare to seed some colonies against the Colossus and is now taking cartography as Columbus, so let's see if he maybe can pull off a nice colonization game. For now he is delaying the second lab though. At my turn, I still have no interest at all to push the event deck. I think I have some very strong options to increase my economy here, and I rather want to have a bit more time until I have to be concerned about strength. I finished the Rome roads, and it was also quite clear for me that I want to go for the Great Wall, even though I had to think a bit about it, because if I go now for the Great Wall, and then if I go for it, there are also two other interesting cards, and I'm also kinda would like to take one of those with my last civil action. But if I take those cards, and even if I maybe just take the Great Wall, it's quite likely that both of the copies of Swordsman are gone. And maybe I could also just go for the Swordsman here. But the thing is, thanks to the development of science, I actually have enough science now to develop the Code of Laws. And then the benefit of the Great Wall is just that I don't have to invest any science into it. And also, and then it means that I can develop the Code of Laws, get an even bigger economical boost, and I don't have to be concerned about not having 4 science lying around at the moment. And so I had to think about it a little bit, but at the end I was just fine with going for the Great Wall anyway. As said, it has some great long-term potential and also short-term. As soon as I will be able to finish it, it hopefully will be helpful for me. I then developed the Code of Laws, and with developing the Code of Laws, I think I should take the cultural heritage here. Maybe I could have also just taken the alchemy, not developed the Code of Laws, but I think it's just a bit costly. There's a second copy of alchemy, there are copies of iron, and I don't think I need to necessarily take this copy of alchemy now. I could also develop a Code of Laws and still just take the alchemy, but then I'm a bit low in science. I think now if I develop the Code of Laws, the cultural heritage just makes it that soon I will be able to go for one more tech, maybe iron, maybe alchemy to get a bit of economy. And so I was at this point fine to skip the alchemy here, even though of course normally it's quite a nice thing to invest into, and especially with the Rome roads I kind of like to have the alchemy. With the additional resource from the Rome roads you are able to build them better, and then in H2 you have 5 science income in the Rome road switches, and then either you were able to also set up some iron, or you can maybe try to get into coal, and 5 science is just a very pleasant amount of science to have in H2. I keep those 2 events and a Legion tactic. I draw the reds in the Naval Trade Agreement. Brightfuture seeds and opens the development of trade routes. This turn increases his population twice. He goes for Saladin, elects him, and then builds a warrior. Kharny seeds and opens the development of politics, so even more military draws. And I have drawn the raiders on certain borders and a blunder. I developed the Kharny develops the cartography, builds the second lab, increases his population, builds the step of the Hanging Gardens at the next turn. It might be his last H1 turn, so he needs to be prepared to finish that one. He also builds a warrior and reveals the fighting band tactic, so there's a chance that one might get upgraded, which could be nice for me as I'm going for the Great Wall. I again didn't want to push soon. I mean, not the next turn or anything, but at some point with the Great Wall, maybe I have a chance to get a bit stronger than my opponents, and so for now I still didn't want to push. I offered a naval trade agreement, and I felt like it is quite a nice pact for me in this situation, because I give it to Brightfuture, the additional colonization force, and it's just really nice for me. I get 2 blue tokens, Brightfuture loses a blue token, but I felt like he might still be very interested in that, because Kharny made very clear that he might have seeded some colonies, and who knows, Brightfuture might have seeded a colony himself as well. There's some colonization payoff, so he has now some real chances to maybe win some of those colonies that are on the deck. But for me, it is also just generally good that maybe they have to pay now higher prices, because they can push the price a bit higher. So I think it makes sense for Brightfuture to accept it, but for me, I think it's just quite strong here, and I was happy that I had a chance to offer it. I start my turn by increasing my population using the frugality. I increase my population again, which gets me out of corruption. And I felt at this point that already I have quite a strong position. Getting Hammurabi into an early monarchy is quite strong. I have a strong HA wonder, I have a strong H1 wonder, I have the Code of Laws already. So I felt like at a strong position. And with that, I decided that I don't want to take any risks here, and because of that, I built a warrior. Just to be safe from an aggression from Kharny. I have now, with the development of politics, drawn quite a lot of cards already, but I have no defense cards. I thought it's very unlikely that Kharny would even try an aggression, but because I have already a strong position, I was here willing to build this warrior. And building this warrior basically has the consequence that I also need to take those reserves, because I wanted to be prepared to finish this Great Wall at the next turn. The reserves might generally be useful, because the Great Wall is of course also only doing something when I have maybe some infantry units. So even if I don't build a warrior this turn, it probably would still be good to take the reserves to be able to finish the Great Wall and build a warrior at the next turn. But now I really need to build now I really need to take those reserves to be able to finish the Great Wall at the next turn. And then I kind of course would like to use some of my civil actions a bit efficiently, so I could just build the first 2 steps. The thing is, the masonry is coming down the row, and I thought there's a decent chance I might get it, and that I then would be able to finish the Great Wall with the masonry. And there are some interesting H2 wonders for the masonry: Ocean Liner, Railroad, Suez Canal. There's even the Forbidden City still in the deck, so I felt like it could be a strong masonry game. And with that, I didn't want to build any stages, and there is still a quite strong yellow card for me. The breakthrough, getting even more science, is quite nice. Taking those 2 yellow cards for 4 civil actions, not the most efficient stuff, but I have so many civil actions that I think I can do it without any issues. And while I don't build any stages, I then can build the stages even more efficiently. Hopefully with the masonry, at least I leave myself open for that. And with my last civil action, I will play the cultural heritage. I also revealed a Legion tactic already, so that I'm able to keep some more cards in hand. Generally, as a rule of thumb in H1, of course, sometimes there are just events that are obviously good for you, but if that is not the case, I try to keep events that might be more influential. So I keep a strong strength event here at some point with the Great Wall, and if that tactic indeed gets upgraded, I might have the strength lead, and both scientific breakthrough, new deposits also can turn out to be quite strong events if I go into coal or scientific method. So I like to keep those, and I wanted to keep all of those, so I revealed a Legion tactic here. Brightfuture actually offers me an open borders agreement, which of course I happily accept. He goes for the first copy of Iron, develops it, goes for an upgrade, goes for another upgrade, gets out of corruption, and gets a bit of resource production going before he will finish his Universitas. Kharny seeds, the event deck flips now, the development of settlement is revealed. Sadly, none of the developments, that gives me a bit more resources. I was hoping that some of those, or development of warfare, might be revealed, because then I could finish the Great Wall and go for Legion tactic. With the development of settlement, that is now not possible. Kharny this turn goes for Columbus, finishes the Hanging Gardens, increases his population, and takes the irrigation. And he has finished the Hanging Gardens. It's also not bad that he has now that many happy population, but on the other hand, as I kinda expected, he has only managed to build his 3rd mine, 2nd lab, 1 warrior, has the cartography, so he managed to get a bit of stuff going, but I think it was quite expensive to delay the economy at the early game and now go for the Hanging Gardens, and especially now with his not so great economy, it's not that easily possible for him to actually use all of that population efficiently. Nonetheless, having all of those population already out means that at a later point he doesn't have to spend civil actions for that, which even if you can't use them for now is still a bit of an advantage that might still come in handy later on. I'm still the weakest, I don't want to push, especially as I actually get stronger this turn. And as you can see, I actually go for Michelangelo here. The ideal leader for me would have been Nostradamus with my 4 military actions and all of the events that I can push. I felt like Nostradamus would have been a very nice leader to have, but he's not in the row yet. Michelangelo is available for 1 civil action. And I can actually potentially go for him and take the iron. And then, as we saw at the beginning of the game, there are a lot of very strong H2 wonders, and there's definitely a chance that one of them might be available early, and with Michelangelo then would allow me to maybe be able to take that a bit cheaper, thanks to having the religion and soon the additional happy face of the Great Wall. He's also giving me a bit of culture income, so I thought Michelangelo might actually be fine here. I could just finish the Great Wall. The thing is, because of no additional resources being revealed from the developments, it's actually not doing that much for me. I would just go up to 4 strength, I would still be the weakest. And with going for Michelangelo, maybe it could actually be nice to go for a bit of upgrades first before I finish that Great Wall. And so I decided to first of all elect Michelangelo. I take the Masonry, I take the Iron, both of those things very nice for Michelangelo, and then I build a warrior, making it that at least at Brightfuture's turn I'm not the weakest. I might be at Kharny's turn, but maybe he also wants to use Columbus. So I thought maybe I can again get away with getting hit by any strength event by getting stronger here, and then instead of starting to work on the Great Wall, I will go for 1 iron upgrade. I could go for a second one, but I decided against doing that because if I now upgrade another mine, then I'm at 0 plus 6, and even with the reserves I'm missing 1 resource to finish the Great Wall. Finishing the Great Wall at the next turn might allow me to again not be the weakest, maybe even the strongest, and additionally, with all of those strong H2 wonders, if there's an early ocean liner service, an early railroads or something, then it would be quite painful if I can't take that wonder with Michelangelo because I have not the ability to finish the Great Wall. So instead of going for the iron upgrade, I just already developed the masonry so that at the next turn I can play the reserves, finish the Great Wall, and after doing that I have still 3 civil actions left, so even if a wonder is in the 3 civil action area, I can still take it with Michelangelo. And I was willing to skip the alchemy for that, but for now I just want to finish the Great Wall, go for some iron upgrades, build wonders with Michelangelo, so the alchemy I think for now would be a distraction, and I think I have the chance here to leave myself open for an H2 solution like scientific method that also then synergizes very well with Newton. I draw some cards, Crusades and Immigration. Brightfuture takes the knights for 2 civil actions, wants to get stronger, builds a knight, reveals the phalanx tactic, is now at 9th strength and increases his population, also takes the rich land. Kharny could seed now and I would be the weakest. Brightfuture gets some draws from the Colossus and Kharny will not seed. Instead, he uses Columbus to get a vast territory, so that's quite strong, even more population for him. And interestingly, he's taking James Cook here, elects him, and then builds 2 warriors to get out of corruption, making him quite a bit stronger. An interesting choice, but further testament maybe that he has seeded maybe even multiple colonies, because maybe he was afraid that James Cook would be taken away, and James Cook might help him winning those colonies. He has now the cartography and James Cook, there's the Suez Canal in the game, he gets an instant replacement for Columbus, even though for now Cook is only producing 2 culture, but as said, there might be colonies coming and he might soon put in a lot of work. So an interesting choice, but it might be correct, even though skipping the Conmon that is available for 3, that he could actually just go into this turn, is quite costly. Brightfuture is in low science, maybe Kharny was hoping that he still gets it at the next turn, but maybe he could have also just waited for Cook at the next turn, because with both of us having no colonies, I feel like Cook might very well still be available at the next turn, and maybe securing that Conmon is more important than Cook. And now it's my turn, I'm the weakest, I again don't push, and I was extremely happy to see that actually the first card from H2 is the Railroad, which makes my Michelangelo pick now quite nice. That means that I can play the reserves, I can finish the Great Wall, I can go for the Railroad, and importantly I get that 1 resource from Michelangelo, because normally I would now, if I would not be able to take a wonder, stuck at 1 resource, and I would not be able to build another warrior, meaning I would remain the weakest. But now, out of the sudden, thanks to that one resource from Michelangelo, I am able to build another warrior, and I can also copy the upgraded fighting band tactic going up to 12 strength, and now being the strongest with the railroad, there's a good chance that also long term I will be able to remain the strongest, meaning now maybe those strength events will indeed come in quite handy. And then with my last civil action, I decided to just take the Ridgeland. I think that's a very straightforward pick. It allows me to go for 2 instead of only 1 upgrade, and that I think could be extremely important here. I have to discard 1 card, and I decide to get rid of the Immigration, I think it was. I get a War of Attack. An interesting card to have. As soon as I get the 5 strength of the Railroad, there's maybe a chance I could hit one of my opponents with it. Now it's Brightfuture's turn. We also get an early ocean liner service. That wonder I very likely won't be able to take. Brightfuture this turn goes for the Bread and Circuses, fixes his happy faces, gets a bit stronger so that he isn't the weakest. Upgrades his last mine, builds a Step of the Universitas at the next turn, is able to finish it, and might, if the ocean liner service is available for him, be able to finish the Universitas and take the ocean liner. Kharny did get the Conmon back, so it was maybe fine the way he played it, even though if he would have taken it instead of Cook for 3, then at least the Conmon would have given him some civil actions already. But he can now this turn take the Conmon, go up to 6 civil and 4 military actions, takes the Patriotism. If he indeed expects to win a lot of colonies, then being able to rebuild some with the Patriotism might be important. He builds a warrior to get out of corruption and ends his turn, but remains the weakest for now and didn't take the ocean liner. It's my turn, and I start by seeding a very influential strength event, the Uncertain Borders with the Railroad. It could also be that the new deposits might be strong, but Kharny might get into coal, Kharny might get into a Suez Canal, and so I rather went for the strength event here. The event revealed is no colony yet, instead the Pestilence, which is actually a bit annoying because I don't want to lose a warrior. I could actually rebuild a warrior immediately, thanks to having the 3 food lying around, but I'm a bit tight on resources and I really would not like to spend any resources on having to rebuild something. I could also lose a mine and then just build a mine, but again, if I don't do it, I can just go for 2 upgrades here. And at the end I decided to lose the religion. It hurts a bit because I will actually grab the organized religion this turn, and it will cost me resources at some point, not being able to just upgrade this. And also with Michelangelo, that religion was actually producing 2 instead of only 1 culture. But I felt like losing anything of my economy hurts even more. If I lose the farm, then I might have problems rebuilding it, and I will miss out on the ocean liner. So at the end, I felt like it's the best to just lose a bit of culture income for now. And even though I need to pay it 3 additional resources later on when I go for the organized religion. I just upgrade 2 mines. I think that's first good thing to do. And I have to consider Newton and scientific method, because that would be extremely strong for me, and I have to consider if I maybe want to take one of those cards. I could even take both at the beginning of my turn, but I think that would be extremely costly. And I maybe it could be a good idea to secure myself that copy of scientific method. But I at the end decided against it, and I still had some hope to get Newton at the next turn, because the thing is, I will let Newton stay on the 2 civil action area for Brightfuture. Newton and scientific method could be quite strong for him as well, but he can't get into it immediately. And I was hoping that the ocean liner service might be even more attractive to him than Newton and scientific method, and to take the ocean liner service he needs to spend his whole turn, and then he doesn't take Newton, and Kharny has already committed to James Cook. And so I was hoping to get Newton at the next turn. Because of expecting to get Newton, maybe it's even a bigger argument to just secure myself the scientific method, because that card certainly could be taken away by Kharny. But I, at the end, thought that yes, it would be strong to get Newton going quickly, but I have already my government form. I don't necessarily need science that urgently. And it is maybe also just fine to just finish the railroad first and wait for the second copy of scientific method. Additionally, there's also a copy of journalism coming down the row, and who knows, if I get reserves or frugality, I might be able to get 2 more population out, and then Newton might also work with journalism at the end. So at the end I felt it's maybe not necessary to take one of those cards for 3, and instead I rather secured myself that copy of selective breeding, which I think is also quite important because I will miss out on the ocean liner, and both of my opponents have no irrigation developed yet, so there is the danger that I just would miss out on any food income if I don't take it, which again was another reason to then just not take any of those cards for 3. So I take the selective breeding, the urban growth, which will give me additional resource at some point, especially if I get Newton scientific method, it might be a very helpful card, and then the organized religion to have a happy valet solution at some point. There's beer in the game, but I just have the opportunity now to take it for 1. I actually draw 2 colonization cards, but there's no colony revealed yet instead of foray, so a strength event, which I was happy to see. Brightfuture has a free population to lose for the pestilence, will finish the universitas, and then will indeed go for the ocean liner service and doesn't take Newton here. Interestingly, he takes the strength from Saladin. It doesn't make the difference between being weakest and strongest. If that is the case, I'm often skeptical if using it is the correct choice, but it heavily depends, of course, on his event knowledge. But he has actually only seeded 1 event, so with that, I might rather just take the civil action here, because early in age 2, the civil action is just so extremely valuable. But he was maybe afraid of getting hit by something. Kharny takes an early copy of coal, develops it, goes for an upgrade, and then he takes the scientific method away, so sadly I won't be able to get into a quick Newton, which still of course would have been strong, but I do think I have also the ability to just wait a little bit. I am the strongest, and with that I wanted to push, and with already having committed to 1 strength event, I committed to another and seeded the Crusades into the deck. The strategic territory was revealed. I was willing to build a warrior here, a bit of warrior here, and 2 cards, but now my 2 opponents can push themselves a bit higher. Brightfuture, maybe thanks to my pact, makes it that Kharny has to pay more, and Kharny has to still pay relatively few for that colony, and gets it for warrior to wage 1 colonization cards and 2 cards with James Cook. This turn I start by building 2 stages of the railroad, which gets me out of corruption. I could have also gone for some farm upgrades, but I wanted to get that going as quickly as possible, because soon there will be the 2 strength events coming, and I have that war over technology, which potentially could do some damage. And then there are a lot of interesting cards that I kind of would like to take. There are 2 military techs that I need, and especially with the Great Wall, the cannons are just extremely important. There's Newton, and despite having no scientific method available for now, I would still kind of like to go for him. And as I said, if I maybe get something like reserves or frugality, I might actually get 2 more population out. And then Newton also works with journalisms, but it kind of means I want to have Newton, I want to have journalism, I want to have frugality, I want to have those military techs, and I can't take all of those cards, so I need to set priorities here. And at the end, I was willing to pass on the cavalryman, because there's a second copy coming. Kharny, of course, might take that second copy away, so there's a danger that I might miss out on it, but with Railroad and Great Wall, even if I get a tactic where I need those units, that just might carry me for such a long time that I can just wait for tanks. But I wanted to have the cannons available, because if you have the Great Wall and get something like fortifications and defensive army, that's just so strong that I want to be open for that. But I was willing to skip the cavalryman, even though they are available for civil action cheaper. So I take the cannons, I take Newton, I take the journalism, and I also want to take the frugality now, but now I have no space in hand, but there's one way to fix that, and it is to actually elect Newton already, and then I can take the frugality. He isn't doing anything for me this turn, but Michelangelo also only produced me 1 culture this turn. Maybe I would have gone into statue, but I have a lot of other stuff to do, and so I felt like it's not too bad to just already elect Newton here. Sadly, I'm not the strongest any longer after my turn, so the strength taking from Saladin from Brightfuture might still do some work. And in the next turn I can then decide whether I want to finish the railroad or whether I actually want to set up a journalism with Newton. Sadly, I'm missing 1 resource to do both. I draw another colonization card, so I expected some more colonies, and I was happy that I had those cards available. Brightfuture offers an international trade agreement to Kharny. Sadly, that means that our open borders agreement is cancelled. Brightfuture took the additional resource. He this turn builds a step of the ocean liner, takes the second copy of Conmon, which he really needs, increases his population to get out of corruption, and then takes the wave of nationalism, so a relatively straightforward turn. Now it's Kharny's turn. This time, interestingly, Brightfuture went for the civil action. Kharny takes the strategy here, the Rifleman, which is a very important tech for him, develops the scientific method, goes for an upgrade, and takes the urban growth. And when we take a look at the road, the Suez Canal is coming down. He has 2 colonies, he has lots of H2 cards drawn, especially also with the strategic territory. And thanks to James Cook and also some other culture income, he is running a bit away with the culture. And if he now gets a strong Suez Canal, I was a bit afraid. But Kharny also left himself a bit vulnerable this turn, because when we take a look after his production, he is at 5 signs, meaning he doesn't have enough to go for Rifleman, for strategy. He can build some more warriors, and he has this upgraded tactic, but it's not the most efficient strength. And so I thought, with him having that big potential, but with him having left himself a bit vulnerable, I thought that now is the time to strike and use the strength of the railroad to actually go for that war technology that I've drawn earlier on. And so I declared a war against Kharny. It's not completely without risk. There might be some science-giving events revealed, but at least I have knowledge about the scientific breakthrough, so there's only the knowledge of the ancients left. And so I declared a war. I finished the railroad. I increased my population. That also makes space in my hand. And the good thing is that there's another copy of scientific method available for 1 civil action for me. While I could just wait until next turn to go into journalism, I think going into scientific method this turn, which with the urban growth I'm able to do, it gives me just such a big boost that I don't want to wait to go for journalisms. Instead, I take the scientific method, I develop it, I go for a very cheap upgrade using this urban growth. And then I thought about just taking revolutionary idea or something, but I decided that it is worthwhile to increase my population and to build yet another warrior. First of all, it makes of course my war even more threatening and also more safe. It might put the Kharny under even more pressure, and the more pressure he has, the more difficult it might get for him to try to go for the Suez Canal. Already it might take a while with the thing that he has ongoing, but now that he has to defend himself, it might just take too long to finish it, which I was hoping would be the case. And also, if I win this war by a bit more, there's a chance that I might steal this blue tech, the cartography, which I felt like could actually be quite strong here. First of all, there might be more colonies coming, with Kharny having gone for cartography, Cook, and so on. And also Brightfuture having some colonization force. But second of all, that cartography gives me an additional strength, and I have this blunder in hand. And if one of my opponents maybe doesn't have an efficient way to react to that, I felt like there's a chance I might actually be able to pull this blunder off at the next turn, and I was actually willing to discard the new deposits, which I felt like could still be a useful event for me at some point, but maybe it also might just help Kharny to get all of the stuff going. If he still goes for Suez, for example, so at the end of the turn I am willing to discard the new deposits and 2 colonization cards in order to keep this tactic, the aggression, and only 1 colonization card, which of course could definitely hurt if there are some more colonies coming. And then with the last civil action I take this frugality, which I can't use for now, but at the next turn I really plan to start going for some farm upgrades, so that soon I also hopefully will be able to use the frugality and then get population out quicker. Brightfuture develops the Conmon, takes Maria Theresa for 3 civil actions, wants to elect her immediately, and can at the next turn already get 3 resources from her. It will also finish the ocean liner service this turn, so I think it makes sense for him to just take her already this turn, especially because there's a chance that the age might end before his next turn. He finishes the ocean liner service, and then he makes a very interesting decision. And because he builds a unit, but that unit is not a knight, instead a warrior. And at the end of the turn, I mean, he has only 4 cards in hand, so he will keep this H1 card. He is exactly 8 strength behind me, so if this is a colonization card, if he has an H2 colonization card, then he has just 2, 6, 7, 8. So just the amount that he would need if he has those cards. But just building this warrior kinda made me feel like that might be the case. Maybe he's just wanting to use the free military action. He could have also built a knight and then have a bit more strength. So it kind of looked to me like he just wants to be at that amount of strength that he's able to defend. But we will now see Kharny's defense, and at my turn I was thinking that there is maybe a chance that maybe he could have overlooked something, and that is that I might be able to steal that cartography, because then all of a sudden he, if that is even a colonization card, would then need 2 H2 colonization cards to defend. And he could have prevented it by building a knight. Maybe he was aware of that. Maybe he has just enough defense cards anyway, or maybe he has just non-defense cards anyway. Him building a warrior over the knight is generally interesting, because in most cases I think the knight would be more reasonable. I didn't see any specific reason to keep 9 instead of 8 resources here. So I thought it might be an indicator towards the tactic that he might be having, which then might just be the defensive army, because other than that I don't know any tactic where just building a warrior would make sense than building a knight now. So it could be an indicator towards his tactic, or he just wanted to have the minimum cost to be able to defend, but potentially overlooked then that I might be able to steal the cartography. Kharny takes the revolutionary idea. I was interested to see, of course, how he responds. Is he willing to destroy something? And indeed, he destroys the temple that he for now doesn't need, builds a warrior, builds another warrior at 15 strength, but thanks to having built the additional warrior, I have now enough strength still to steal the cartography. And when I saw Brightfuture's turn and looked at his defense cards, I thought there might indeed be a chance that maybe he has overlooked that I can steal the cartography. And I have only this aggression in hand anyway, so even if Brightfuture would be at 12 strength, I might still try the aggression. But now it was completely clear for me that maybe there's actually an opportunity to get a blunder going, and I was very interested to see if I might indeed have success with it. So I steal the cartography here. I have a good amount of science anyway, so I felt like the small benefits of the cartography might be more useful to have. Especially as it increases my chances for successful aggression here. I tried a blunder, and it is indeed successful, so I can now steal some stuff from Brightfuture, 4 resources, 1 food, and I think that is actually quite a big setback for him, and of course a big boost for me. I go for selective breeding this turn. My first instinct was just to go for 2 upgrades, but now that I have taken this one tiny bit of food that I shamelessly stole from Brightfuture, I have, even with 1 upgrade, enough food to increase my population. It might still be very reasonable to go for the second farm upgrade, because I just need a lot of population generally. But while at the moment it looks like I have more than enough science, I still felt like maybe the science is actually still even more important, because I need a lot of military techs, especially if I want to go for the Napoleonic army tactic. I might need air forces, I might need something like military theory, and then it would of course also be great to go into an H3 government farm. So I felt like I have so much stuff to do with my science that despite my good amount of science and income, I still rather want to have the science earlier, especially because that brings me to 17 science, meaning that if there's an early democracy revealed at my next turn, now I actually would have enough science to go into that immediately, which potentially would give me a huge boost. So yeah, so I felt like the science is even more valuable now that I have the ability to still increase my population at the next turn. I was willing to go for that upgrade over the food upgrade. You might of course argue that I just go for both upgrades, and that's also of course something that I kind of wanted to do. The thing is, I have the Napoleonic army tactic. I again thought I have a good position now that I have this aggression in the war, now that I pulled those things off, and so I just wanted to make sure that I have all of those techs, the cavalryman and the rifleman. The rifleman very likely might be taken by Brightfuture, who just committed to an additional infantry unit, and so I just wanted to have those, and then I don't have enough civil actions to go for both a lab and a farm upgrade. I draw some cards, another war, so that's interesting, and a mobile artillery tactic. Brightfuture takes the cannons, plays the wave of nationalism, has 9 additional resources for the military now, builds a cannon, builds another cannon, is now at 17 strength and definitely safe from any aggressions. Also is willing to take the breakthrough for 3 civil actions. Now H3 starts, and we can maybe take a quick look at the overview. Kharny, thanks to James Cook and some other tiny things like the Wonders, has at the moment a culture lead, but Rome Roads will switch now to culture income, and I'm generally only 22 culture behind, so that's really not that big of a difference, and I felt like my economy is just a lot better, the science income, the resource income, and soon hopefully also the food income. and I have more military pressure going on. The Great Wall gives me quite a potential in H3, so I felt like I am in a good position. Nonetheless, if Kharny manages to get those upgrades going quickly here, then he still also has a decent economy, and he has that bit of a culture lead for the moment. He has a very good yellow bank, so I felt like he definitely can also get quite a nice position going. Early Bill Gates or something could give him quite a big boost. And Brightfuture is maybe a bit behind, but he has Ocean Liner Service Maria Theresa, which I think will give him a lot of value. Help so Maria maybe single-handedly puts his position from being maybe behind to maybe not actually being that much behind. Nonetheless, I maybe would evaluate his position as the worst, but with the population that he will be getting, he might have some military potential together with Maria, so he will get some Colossus draws now, so those are all factors to consider. H3 starts, and Kharny gets an interesting card as the first H3 card, which I was not too happy about because he missed out in the selective breeding, but now he is able to go for that very early mechanized agriculture, upgrades mine, upgrades that farm. Has spent a lot of resources though. He might have been very safe nonetheless, but after this fortunate mechanized agriculture, now something fortunate for me and with that unfortunate for Kharny happens, which now makes it that again he leaving himself a bit vulnerable will be punished because among the next 3 cards there is actually a military theory revealed, and I thought about some different lines for this turn, but I think going for this war is just by far the best that I can do. I declare this war over territory. I increase my population with the frugality. I take the military theory, develop it for free with Newton. I develop the organized religion for free with Newton. With that I'm able to fix my happy faces. I think I didn't have knowledge about rebellion, so it's good that I'm able to fix this. And then I'm able to just fix my food income. And with the 2 resources that I've left, I will build a warrior which will fulfill another tactic, so I actually increase my strength by another 4. Which makes me very threatening. I still get 3 draws, so I can draw more wars, maybe aggressions. And while I now am very heavily committed on warriors, maybe there are some colonies coming which allow me to get rid of some of those, and then I can still go for the Napoleonic army tactic. So yeah, I felt like this turn is very straightforward. I thought about some different lines, like going for team sports instead of organized religion, and not going for the warrior, and there's Pierre in the game, but that at the end just felt like the most clean turn, and I didn't want to take the team sports when I have the organized religion already in hand, especially if I already might have some issues with my hand space here. I was interested to see what I might draw. I draw 2 aggressions, so there's a chance I might pull those off. An impact of government also has some potential, especially if I get an H3 government form. Brightfuture seeds, and there is a territory revealed. I was actually willing to put a warrior because that additional science will actually allow Kharny to go for both strategy and rifleman, and with that I at the end was happy to see that Brightfuture is actually the one to win it. That is actually the best outcome for me, and Brightfuture wins it for a knight and a colonization card. Brightfuture increases his population, builds a warrior, and now we might see, after he also goes for another arena, so Pierre might at some point be quite strong for him. He takes the ref idea, and he reveals the defensive army tactic. Now we see why he maybe built this warrior earlier on. So there were some reasons definitely for it. Nonetheless, maybe that was also the reason why he got hit by the aggression. So hard to say if that was correct or not. Maybe he also just didn't have any defense cards in hand, so it depends of course what cards he had exactly. But now at least he has the defensive army tactic, even though it's still in the outdated form, but it makes at least that he's somewhat safe from an aggression. He takes the reserves, the rich land, and ends his turn. Kharny needs to defend against this war over territory, opens another colony. This one I think is not that influential for a war and might even potentially make it that he goes for less military if he sends the unit away. Of course, maybe it also helps him building more, but I was very fine with leaving that colony to Kharny, so he wins it for just a warrior, which I guess is still good for him. He takes the fundamentalism, but he can't develop it this turn already. He takes the patriotism, develops the strategy, upgrades another lab, builds a warrior, increases population, and is not willing to commit even more heavily into warriors, especially because that would only give him 2 strength, so it wouldn't change the amount of yellow tokens that he loses here, and so he just rather keeps that as a free population. But it means that I at my turn will actually steal 3 yellow tokens, and as Kharny is quite a bit behind in strength, I decided to try an aggression against him, which I can do without missing out on any draws. And I am able to win this aggression actually, so I steal 7 culture from Kharny and with that already get a bit closer to him. And now at my turn I decided to go for computers. There's Bill Gates in the game, Marie Curie, Einstein, so there's some synergy for computers, and with Newton that just gives me an even bigger economical buff and keeps me maybe a bit flexible. Maybe I've done so much science that I can also go to oil if something like that's available. Maybe makes it that I can go for that now, but still maybe go for an H3 government form soon. So I go for computers. I develop it for free with Newton. I upgrade one. And my first initial response was to just take the air forces here. And I do also think it would be a clean turn. But then I thought a bit about the air forces, and I felt like maybe in this situation it's actually fine to not take them, because I am at the moment just on warriors. It takes quite a long time until the air forces actually do something for me. And even without the air forces, I at least should have enough strength to hopefully be safe together with the Great Wall. I have a tactic, I can threaten H3 tactics, and I felt like even without the air force I'm safe. Maybe I could need them for a war, but for the moment I don't have any war in hand. I think I felt like I can win this game without wars, just with good impacts and trying to score a lot of culture. And when we take a look at Kharny's civilization, if he is then the one getting the air force instead of me, he also has all of those warriors. He is far away from going into any tactics, so for now the air force is also not the greatest technology for him. For Bright Future they soon might be. But if he is a bit more threatening, maybe that is even a positive for me, as Kharny might struggle more than I do in order to defend a potential military push from Bright Future. So I felt like air forces may be fine to pass in them here, and it's of course also I considered this because there are some interesting alternatives that at the end I rather went for, and that is to take the revolutionary idea and the movies. I could also go for yet another upgrade, but I decided to not do it yet. The revolutionary idea allows me to already at the next turn go into an H3 government form if one is available, which I think again would give me a huge buff, and just generally the additional science is extremely useful. So yeah, I felt that at the end is more important than the air forces here, and having the movies in hand prepares me for Chapel and Marlene. Maybe going for Hollywood is possible, especially because a lot of wonders will actually be discarded already. So I thought about just upgrading the second lab, but instead I rather wanted to have that in hand to be more flexible. I actually do draw a wall immediately, so with that maybe the air forces could have been still a nice pick. Bright Future seeds. Now my strength events that I've seeded earlier are revealed. The uncertain borders makes it that I steal yet another yellow token from Kharny. Bright Future, as expected, takes the air forces. He also takes the multimedia, though isn't going for that yet. Instead, rather builds an air force, going up to 28 strength, still being a little bit behind me, which I was happy to see, meaning that I might have chances to win the Crusades. And then he takes the Urban Growth and plays the revolutionary idea. Kharny seeds, meaning the Crusades are revealed after the armed intervention, that again makes it that I get closer to him in culture. And for Kharny, I think it's quite strong that the professional spots are available. That's just a very easy way to fix his happy face issues and also give him a bit of strength. Nonetheless, it's almost his whole turn, so it's still not the greatest for him maybe. Now it's my turn and I decide to just push here. I don't necessarily want to go for war or anything. I think I have at the moment still good peaceful options, and I can maybe still go for the war later on with maybe more potential. So I see the impact of government, because thanks to having taken the revolutionary idea, I can now go for one of those 2 governments that are on the row. The event revealed is the historic territory. I don't need that many warriors, so I was willing to bid a little bit for this, but Bright Future is at the end able to win it, but I was very happy to see that he at least has to pay a lot for that. Nonetheless, he can rebuild with Maria, and get some close in culture, so that he at this point is not that far behind any longer. So I think it's understandable that he bids that much for it. I could just go for the democracy, but it's costs 2 more civil actions, And with that, I felt like the communism, especially with me at the moment having enough happy faces, should be the better choice. I go for the communism. Maybe I have too many military actions now, or more than I need, but who knows? I have this war. If I still want to go for it, then I will need lots of military actions to upgrade a lot of warriors, to build some units, to declare the war. So those might actually be useful. I get additional resource on income, and it's available for cheaper. So it was quite clear for me that I want to go for the communism here instead of the democracy. I go for one more computer upgrade. I even considered just building a third computer here. But I felt like that might be overkill. First of all, it is costly, and if I still want to go for a bit of a military push, it might also prevent me from maybe having enough resources to build all of the units that I need to build. I was considering it especially because there is Gates in the game. I might get Einstein at my next turn, even though I thought that Einstein might be taken away by Brightfuture, who has the multimedia. But if I get Bill Gates at my next turn, then building the computer might work well. But if not, then it felt like going up to 18 science income might even be a bit of overkill right now, and I didn't want to spend those resources and do this commitment. So I take the reserves, I increase my population. The reason why I considered building this computer is that it nicely gets me out of corruption, because increasing my population twice does not, meaning that I now again have to build yet another warrior, which I really don't need, but I have enough military actions, otherwise I would have just had corruption, so at the end I just build it anyway. And who knows, maybe there is another colony coming, which I then can maybe send some warriors away. I draw the Impact of Progress, which is a good impact for me, especially against Brightfuture, but also against Kharny. Brightfuture reveals the freedom of movement, uses it to move a warrior to Air Force, paying 5 resources, then builds a cannon. It looks like he has maybe a new tactic drawn, and after going for a multimedia, and then going for Einstein, so doing a bit of a turn order mistake here with not getting the culture for Einstein. There's also, I think, no terrorism or anything that could be a reason for that here, so that's probably just a small oversight here. We can see at the end if the 3 culture maybe would have mattered. And yeah, he goes for Einstein and then takes the modern infantry, and he has indeed a tactic, the entrenchments tactic, which I was happy to see. I also, of course, was very happy to see the defensive army tactic, because with the Great Wall, that's even better than having the Napoleonic one, but the entrenchments tactic is of course even better, so I have now some good tactics that I can copy to walls, which also gives me quite some strength potential. Kharny cedes and opens the strategic territory. Now the time has come to finally send a lot of my warriors away. I think I was willing to bid 4 warriors and my 2 cards, especially now that I'm able to transition into some entrenchments. I actually don't have to send all 4 warriors away, only 3. It's a bit costly, of course, but I get a lot of draws, and I think that's just a good deal for me. And the draws that I'm getting, I get another war, Impact of Industry, which has some potential with my railroad if I get into oil, and some aggressions, so I find draws. Kharny takes the military build-up, lays the patriotism for additional resources, the revolutionary idea, develops the rocket, so he also maybe prepares himself to get into entrenchments. He builds a rocket, builds another rocket, has actually the fortifications tactic, so is now not the weakest any longer. Now it's my turn, and I actually push the Impact of Progress into the deck, which very, very likely is just a very good impact for me. I am the weakest, but I was nonetheless willing to push. The inhabited territory is revealed, which doesn't hit me this time, which I'm not able to win this time. Kharny actually is able to win it that quite cheaply. And in this turn, as you can see, there is actually a copy of Air Forces in the row. And while I thought about doing something like going for oil and preparing for an Impact of Industry, I think I have a very clear plan here how I can set myself up to declare war against Kharny. Very likely, as he is now the one missing out in Air Forces, against Kharny at the next turn. And I felt like that's just the most logical and straightforward way to hopefully win this game. So I developed the cannons for free with Newton, I developed the riflemen for free with Newton, I built 2 cannons, I upgrade a bunch of riflemen using a lot of my military actions, I take the air forces, I take the reserves, and then I take Marie Curie, electing her. I could also keep Newton to save a civil action at the next turn, but then again, I didn't have knowledge about iconoclasm. I kind of expected that the colony was probably seeded by Kharny, meaning Brightfuture might have seeded the other event. He has an H3 leader, making it that maybe he could have seeded the iconoclasm, and Marie Curie is already giving me some good value here with some strength and some culture income, and at least a bit of science income still, so I was just willing to elect her right now, and also instead of waiting for Bill Gates or something. So, and the additional strength of her will of course also score me more points in the war. And with my last civil action, I then played the reserves already. And that means that at the next turn I have enough resources or mainly military actions to copy the entrenchments tactic, build 2 cannons and an air force, and it will give me quite a big amount of strength, which should be able to go for hopefully big war against Kharny. I do a bit of an oversight, not a bad one, but I considered if I should upgrade this warrior to rifleman, because I would still have enough resources to go for 2 entrenchments tactic with 1 air force. But I just thought, well, I can still just upgrade this at the next turn and decide then no need to do a commitment. But there is the need to do a commitment if I want to do it, because at the next turn I maybe felt like I have infinite military actions, but if I declare war, copy the tactic, then I have only 3 military actions left to build the 2 cannons in the air force. So yeah, I overlooked that, but it might still be best to just not upgrade it and keep a bit more flexible. But maybe I could also get 2 additional strength for the war, so that was a small oversight, and I maybe let my guard down a little bit here, but not in the most important matter, luckily. I draw some more impacts that I can potentially seed. And also, what I forgot to mention, I also used the freedom of movement. First I had some difficulties finding something, but I actually move a warrior into agriculture, and you can see now that I have exactly 8 food. If I wouldn't have done that, I would be at 7, and I could just increase my population once. Now I can increase my population twice, meaning I have already 2 population for the 2 cannons, and in order to build the air force, I can just destroy the farm that I have moved a warrior into to get that 1 food. That means having an additional population, so I felt like at the end it was a good use for my freedom of movement. Brightfuture also prepares himself for war, builds a modern infantry, takes the patriotism, upgrades 1, meaning that at the next turn he can declare war, play the patriotism, has 2 additional military actions, build 2 cannons, and has then even 2 armies with air forces, but without a great wall. Kharny of course sees all of this and does his best here to prepare himself, increases his population twice, develops the rifleman, builds a rocket, uses the military builder, building another rocket, upgrading a warrior to rifleman, and then takes the military theory, denying it probably mainly as the strategy already, but maybe denying it from Brightfuture because he has 11 science to develop it, so he is doing his best, actually making it that he is again for now not the weakest, but his strength potential is still not big enough. He has only 9 resources left. Even if he gets a helpful event, he might get a bit closer, but it's not enough for him to win the war, and with that I declare the war against him. I increase my population twice, which I can do thanks to having put work into a 3rd farm with the freedom of movement. I will now destroy that farm, develop the air forces, play the reserves, build an air force, build 2 cannons, and then I have just 2 military actions left to copy the entrenchments tactic. With the remaining civil actions, I then took the satellites and the engineering, because the impact of progress is in the deck. Brightfuture has some science lying around, and I can just deny those texts from him for the impact of progress. I just didn't have a lot else to do. There's the endowment, but I'm the first one to steal culture from Kharny, so I was thinking that it's very unlikely that I can get any culture out of the endowment. I also, yeah, I have the movies already in hand if I want to go for those, so at the end it just felt like the best what I can do with those civil actions. Now it's Brightfuture's turn. He also goes for a war against Kharny. He destroys a mine, you gets 1 population from the ocean liner, plays the patriotism, builds a cannon, builds another cannon, is now at 72 strength, so 4 strength less than I have, takes the urban growth and the rockets interestingly, but maybe just as a tech to develop with Einstein. The age ends, so the last round starts, and Kharny got hit by those 2 wars, so it's now looking not really great for him, but he does actually get a bit of help here. The economic progress is revealed, annoyingly for Brightfuture, who actually loses 4 culture here, and Kharny gets a bit of help from the war. He still won't be able to win it, so I was actually happy about that event, because I and Brightfuture, of course, still steal the same amount of culture, meaning maybe Kharny gets a bit of help, but he gets still hit by 2 wars, so it's still looking bad for him. But for me, the additional resources mean that I actually can finish the United Nations at my turn. Kharny revolts into fundamentalism, builds a rocket, another rocket, is now actually at 69 strength after copying the entrenchments tactic, so that is a very reasonable defense, but not enough to win any war. And at my turn, I first of all will steal a bit of culture from Kharny. I seed the impact of industry. The impact of wonders is revealed, which actually gives me a bit more culture in Kharny, but it's close. I can take the United Nations. I can develop the satellites. Can finish the United Nations. Now I can evaluate the impact of technology before Brightfuture has at his turn a chance to maybe go for 2 more techs. And so that's just a good impact for me to evaluate, and then with the remaining civil actions I will play the reserves to spend a warrior and build a religion to not have any unhappy workers for the potential impact of happiness, which might have been ceded by potentially both of my opponents. I just get 1 safe culture, and I also considered increasing pop and upgrading this, but at the end the religion I think is just the best choice here. Now, Brightfuture will steal 8 culture from Kharny, but we see at the moment he's still 1 culture behind, but he gets his turn now, but Kharny might still not be out of the game here, actually. Brightfuture seeds, the impact of government is revealed, Kharny gets plus 19, I get plus 24. The communism, of course, also gave me plus 2 points compared to the democracy for this impact, at least, and Brightfuture gets the least out of it. He takes the oil, develops the rockets, develops the oil, gets 2 more techs for Einstein. He then increases his population with the ocean liner service, meaning that he has now famine, and for that he will destroy a mine, which will cost him 2 points for the impact of industry, but of course he doesn't know for certain that this impact is in there. And then before the final impacts, we can see that my lead, and also with the good impacts that I have, is big enough to win me the game. But between Kharny and Brightfuture, it might still be close, especially because the impacts that I put in are a bit better for Kharny than for Brightfuture. So we will see if maybe Kharny can, despite the wars, still finish second. The first impact is the impact of population. That one I didn't have knowledge about, and it's a good one for Kharny, despite Brightfuture having the ocean liner, but maybe sending the 3 pop away for the defensive arm, for the historic territory, is costing him here a little bit. There's the impact of agriculture, again, an impact that I didn't have knowledge about, a bad one for Brightfuture. Kharny is actually already only 1 culture behind Brightfuture. Then there's the impact of progress coming, plus 22 for me, plus 4 for Brightfuture, plus 10 for Kharny. Kharny overtakes Brightfuture here. We have the impact of industry, which is also better for Kharny as for Brightfuture. And the last impact is the impact of variety, which I didn't have knowledge about, and both Kharny and Brightfuture aren't really good in that impact, so I get another plus 8 against them, and Kharny actually manages to finish second here. Brightfuture getting a bit unfortunate here with the impacts, all of them were quite bad for him. Of course he maybe also just was not that great, that nicely prepared for a lot of impacts, but nonetheless, maybe could have hoped for something like impact of science that could have been seeded by me, for example, or impact of strength, but none of those impacts, which would have been logical impacts for me to seed, were in there. Instead, only impacts that were really bad for him. So yeah, that's of course quite unfortunate, and I think he definitely also could have finished second here, and also the economic progress helped Kharny, so for him a bit unfortunate that he didn't make it at the end to finish second, but Kharny defended well, and yeah, at the end finished second, also a testament to having a good position, losing a war over tech, a war over territory, and then 2 wars over culture, but still not losing the game. So of course a testament that he had a very decent position, maybe left himself sometimes a bit too vulnerable, and allowed me to go for those wars. but especially for the second war, the war over territory, it was also a bit unfortunate for him, because without his early military theory, I wouldn't have gone for that, and so that was a bit unfortunate. Nonetheless, I think my position going into H3, even without a war over territory, was quite strong, but definitely it could have been a lot closer if maybe things didn't go as smoothly, because I think things went very nicely for me in this game. The draws and how the cards came together, it was just quite nice for me, and so yeah, at the end that leads to a decisive victory. But my position was strong enough to maybe allow also for some things to not go as smoothly and still having a fine position. Alright, with that we are at the end of this game, and we can now see how it looks in the standings after I was able to win this game. And with that win, I have a bit of a lead again, 5 points before Marrakesh. We have now the same amount of games finished, so my position is still quite strong. I'm still very happy about how the stage went for me so far, but Marrakesh, with pulling off those results and with there being one opponent which is in points clearly above of the others, it means that, yeah, it's still a bit of a dangerous position, and a lot will depend now on the last 3-player game. If I manage to finish before Marrakesh in that one, then I have a really good position going into the 2-player games, but if Marrakesh wins that one, or at least finishes before me, things are quite close, and then, yeah, then I have to make sure to get some good 2-player games going. So I hope you're excited to see how all of that continues, and then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.